Heal my heart, Lord, make me new, make me clean, Lord, clean like you. Heal my heart, Lord, make me new, make me clean, Lord, clean like you.
Good morning. I don't know why that song was like on my heart this morning. Maybe it has to do with what we're going to talk about today. So good morning. I hope you guys are starting off your day well or ending it wherever you are. So that was Heal My Heart, I think by Jermaine Edwards. I couldn't see on Spotify who was singing it. But I was looking through the lyrics, and it definitely goes along with what we're talking about healing abuse. So I'm just going to read the lyrics. I can get lost sometimes, caught up and stuck in pride, but something about your love always leads me home. If I feel beaten down, broken and emptied out, there's something about your love. I don't know if this was what we were listening to exactly, but this is what came up. Something about your love always leads me home. Perfectly whole, that's what I want to be. To do your will, I have to be complete. Change my heart, Lord. Give me joy and peace. Set apart and consecrated. Oh Lord, speak into me. Heal my heart, Lord. Make me new. Make me clean, God. Clean like you. Walk me to the river. Cleanse me from the inside out. Wash me with your spirit. Place me in a furnished house. I thought he was saying Father's arms. So I would have to look into this more and see if I've got the right lyrics, but it's still, basically the same. The point is being cleaned and healed through the Holy Spirit. That is the point, right? That is why we're doing this. This is why we're talking about, our past, and we're learning to be able to let God take that from us, like any pain, or to, I guess, like going back to your point yesterday, Kristen, you were talking about like if God breaks us, right? And I was thinking about that more, and I don't know that I'm finished thinking about it, but I was thinking about like breaking. When I first read that, I thought of like the authoritative father figure, right? And I think that is stemming from like our past experiences, right, with maybe our parents, and that authoritative piece of, like, being irrational and demanding things that we weren't even capable of giving yet. And so, like, even going through healing, that is in a way a breaking, right? Because we're being broken. That mold that was created through the stuff that we experienced is being broken apart. And then we're learning new ways, and we're learning God's love. So I guess what I was thinking about yesterday was more the, like, God's sitting in heaven shaking his fist at us, and he's not, he loves, right? And then I think it comes down to each individual too. Like Paul, he needed a wake-up call, right? So God took his sight, and got his attention. But then the Samaritan woman at the well, he went and he started breaking her apart with his love and his compassion and his wisdom about her life. And he was letting her know, I know what you've done, and I still love you, and I'm here to set you free from the reasons why you do what you do. So yes, I think, he has to, especially like if we do have pride and stuff, he has to break that in us, and he does that by putting us in humble circumstances, right? So yes, I guess in a way we are always being broken apart, but it's not that iron fist broken. It's with his love. So that's some stuff that came to my mind after our conversation yesterday. You guys have anything that you want to share, that you want to talk about before we get started? Today we're going to talk about how abuse is a perversion of the image of God. All right. Okay, so I have not read this yet. I didn't have time yesterday, so we'll be surprised together. Until God brought Mary into my life, I simply didn't comprehend the staggering impact of abuse. I was particularly shocked at the images of this beautiful little girl who had haunting memories of abuse that would repeatedly engulf her in such toxic clouds of self-annihilating shame that she would viciously, I'm just going to say, harm her body. How could SA that had occurred years before cause a bright and gifted young girl who had grown up in a loving Christian family to have such self-loathing and shame that harming herself actually brought a twisted sense of release? After Mary had disclosed her abuse, her parents sought counsel from Dr. Susan Jones, a godly Christian pediatrician who specialized in working with high-risk adolescents in the California juvenile justice system. Dr. Jones explained to Mary's confused parents that in 10 years of treating adolescents, she had worked with hundreds of teens who harmed their bodies. Nearly all of her young adolescent patients who self-mutilated had been SA'd. In some strange way, the uninvited pain in their souls was temporarily assuaged by deliberately creating pain in their bodies. How is it that SA generates such powerful self-destructive urges? Abuse opens a Pandora's box of long-term destructive fallout that raises a host of troubling questions. Why is it that women who have been abused during childhood are significantly more likely to be re-victimized in adulthood? Why are adult female prostitutes 3 to 4 times more likely than non-prostitutes to have been physically or sexually abused in childhood? Why is it that 70 to 80% of sex addicts are survivors of physical or sexual abuse? Why is it that 50 to 70% of psychiatric inpatients are 70% of all psychiatric emergency room patients report a history of childhood physical or sexual abuse? Why is it that the majority of men who hit their wives and or children experience childhood physical abuse? One might logically expect that men who experience the horror of abuse in childhood would be the least likely to be abusers themselves, not wanting to inflict the kind of pain on their loved ones that was inflicted on them. The unpleasant truth is that abuse is profound, wildly irrational consequences. It tears the soul. The only way we can truly understand the effects of abuse is to clarify what it means to be a human being made in the image of God. To understand the devastating impact of abuse, we need to understand the manner in which abuse perverts the image of God in humans. Made in the image of God, Genesis 1 and 2. Christian theology asserts that humans are not just the most highly evolved mammals at the top of the food chain. We are not simply the most complex machines that accidentally arose out of a primordial soup. I might have said that wrong, primordial. Millions of years ago. Rather, humans are dazzling, unique among the entire created realm. For only humans are made in the very image of God. As one theologian wisely notes, being made in God's image confers on the human subject the highest possible distinction, leaving the world of the animals far behind. Here is language used of no other creature, language that teaches us to understand ourselves in terms of God rather than in terms of the animals. The Bible is very clear that all humans are uniquely made in the image of God, in Genesis and the book of James. In fact, being made in God's image lies at the core of what it means to be human. For when God chose to create humans, he made them in his own image. Our challenge is to understand more precisely what image of God means, since the Bible nowhere defines this monumentally important phrase. The best way to make sense of the image of God is to look at the creation account in Genesis 1:26-28, where this phrase first appears. We should note first that the biblical account of human creation is distinctly different from other ancient Mesopotamian creation accounts in which humans are created as an afterthought to provide the gods with food and relieve them of work. Moses, on the other hand, tells us that humans are the apex of all creation. For only after Adam and Eve are created does God pronounce his finished work as very good. The first chapter of the Bible tells us that God did a magnificent, unique work where he created humans, for they alone are created in such a way that they mirror the sovereign Lord of the universe. While there are many theories about the nature of being made in God's image, I believe it's best to understand it as referring to all that we are as humans. Thus, there are various aspects to the image of God that can be seen in the creation account. The first aspect of the image of God seen in Genesis 1:26 is the rational aspect. By virtue of being made in God's image, humans have the capacity, longing, and need for intimate relationship based on the truth that God himself is a relational God who is in intimate relationship within his own divine being. Jesus himself spoke of the loving intimacy he had with the Father and praised that his children would reflect God through intimate human relationships. I talk about that all the time, how relationship, that is God, and it's something that we thrive in, right? When we have relationships and close friendships, we can be there for one another. One is weak and one is strong. We can lift each other up, right? And it's this partnership and this deep, intimate, right? Intimate, being vulnerable, sharing the depths of our pain and experiencing all the different things together. And so it makes sense, with abuse that creates walls. We want to protect ourselves, and we not only keep the people out that are abusing us, but we keep out God, we keep out good relationships. So another reason why we would want to heal stuff, so that we're not settling for what we have and we can have the fullness that God wants to give us. Sorry, I lost my spot. Apparently, when God chose to create creatures who would mirror who He is, the best and maybe the only way to do so was to create not just an individual, but a pair whose very sexuality as male and female complements and draws each to the other. The relational aspect of being made in God's image has profound implications. The New Testament teaches that intimate relationships in the Christian community are essential for spiritual growth. Furthermore, social scientists have discovered that healthy relationships are essential for social, intellectual, and emotional growth. Children who are completely cut off from human contact develop permanent social and intellectual impairment. Makes me think of people say they have social anxiety, right? And I guess you could say that with me, at least, in the past. I still feel a little anxious when I'm in social groups, but it is, I think, because it's not like, oh, it's an anxiety I have, I better get some medicine. I was isolated more as a child, and also it's that whole when people get together, especially like work situations, like if I had to go to events, I hate having to go to events and do small talk, right? Because what is it always about? The surface stuff, like, hey, what do you do for a living? Or, oh, we went on this vacation. Oh, it's like all that surface stuff, and I don't like that. And I don't have a lot of that. I don't have, all those things to talk about because I survived most of my life, So when I'm in situations where I can talk deeply, that's where I thrive. I want to talk about the things that needed healing. I want to talk about the deep things in our lives, and yeah, so it's nerve-wracking to be in those situations where you do the small talk, because I don't have a lot to provide in that aspect, I guess. So that's, I think, what makes me nervous, is the then judgment, right? Like, why is she so quiet? Or, I don't have these great, amazing stories to tell about what I've done in life and, in my career and stuff. So yeah, I think it's that. And I think about like some people in my family, and, they are terrified of any social situation. And when I think about possibly why, it's again because you don't want to be seen, especially when you're still in pain and when you're still hiding things, it's hard to be in settings where you have to talk to people, but don't talk about what you really need to talk about. You have to talk about the things you've never experienced, I don't know. It's just weird. But I think just as a society, we're so quick to label things and dole out medication instead of like going to the root, like why do you have that anxiety when you're in groups of people? And what's that root? And now let's work on that root to bring you out of that, you know, give you confidence. All right. Sorry, I'm just going to start here. I totally lost where I was. Furthermore, social scientists have discovered, so scientists, right? Social scientists have studied, have discovered that healthy relationships are essential for social, intellectual, and emotional growth. So I think like even the secular world understands that we are in better shape when we're social. Children who are completely cut off from human contact develop permanent social and intellectual impairment. I do not believe that it's permanent, but I believe that it'd be very hard to, might take a little more work to get them out of that. Research on attachment has shown the tremendous long-term social and emotional significance for children to have a secure attachment with their parents. Research on attachment has shown the tremendous long-term social and emotional significance for children to have a secure attachment with their parents. That stood out. That's so that's a big piece of this, right? For our social and emotional development, we need a secure attachment to our parents. The human need for relationship is so profound that infants who are fed, clothed, and given medical care, but are deprived of physical touch, will often fail to thrive, and left untouched may actually die. Yet we must remember that our very capacity for intimate relationships based on being made in God's image creates great vulnerability in a sinful, abusive world. Yeah, so we have this capacity for intimate relationship. We need intimate relationship because we're made in God's image. But then that's vulnerable because of how broken this world is, right? A second aspect of the image of God is seen in the language of Genesis 1:26. In our image, according to our likeness. We might call this the visible aspect of the image of God. It is the aspect of the image of God in which humans visibly demonstrate God's attributes. We see this in the very terminology of this verse, image and likeness. The point here is that humans are to visibly manifest who God is. We're to show who God is. That is, they are to make visible the invisible God. Colossians 1:15. As with the first aspect of the image of God, we can anticipate great damage when humans, especially children who are idealistic and vulnerable, look to key adults expecting to get a glimpse of what God is like, but in reality getting a picture of what Satan is like. Yep. This can be compared to a lost child who is dehydrated and in desperate need of water. If the thirsty child finds a bottle of clear fluid labeled mineral water, it would be particularly perverse if the child, after drinking the liquid in good faith, became gravely ill because the fluid was actually poison. the child would come to fear the very thing needed to sustain life, which is water. That's pretty good. Children need and deserve to glean a sense of the character of God by watching their adult caregivers. Adults who distort the image of God cause great harm to spiritually thirsty children. And I do believe that we are born knowing God, right? And then our job is to continue to raise our children in knowing God, right? And not just knowing him like, hey, read your scriptures, like connecting with him, right? We need to teach them how to be intimate with God, how to be vulnerable with God, right? How to go to him when we're sad, go to him when we're wanting to celebrate and we're joyful. And a lot of us don't get that. And so we do get that image because we know God, right? There's a knowing of God. And we're getting the opposite of who God actually is as an example, then yes, I could see how that would distort. Just like when I was little and I thought of heaven and I cringed at the thought of ever going to heaven because I was relating it to my environment and the fact that it would never end. A third and final aspect of the image of God is often called the functional aspect. The aspect in which humans function as God's representatives on earth. In terms of creation, we are his vice regents or representatives in caring for the creation. The Bible's account of creation suggests this aspect of the image of God. For in Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image, is immediately followed by, and let them rule. We also see this in Genesis 2. For God waited to create some of the plants until Adam had been created to care for them. God put Adam in the garden to cultivate it and keep it. While the Bible ultimately assigns the providential care over the created world to God himself, God made humans in his image as his functional representatives to care for creation. This involves both control and cultivation. We can easily see how this aspect of the image of God can be distorted. Instead of functioning properly as God's representatives to care for creation, we can rule harshly over creation and grossly misrepresent who God is. When humans do not function as God's representatives but use their power to dominate rather than nurture, much long-term damage is done. I think this is good so far. What do you guys think? And I think too, we need to make sure we're not like scolding ourselves, that we're not coming down on ourselves because of things maybe we see that we represented God wrong for our children, or we didn't do the greatest job, thus far helping them to be intimate with God and know him, because we also have things, right, that we need to be healed from, that we didn't have a proper representation, right? So we have to remember too, we're not the enemy, right? We're loved by God, and he wants to, mold us in a way to where we can then nurture the people around us. The effects of sin. Yes, I know it's so much to process. And I kind of feel like, if we're ever if we ever need to stop, just let me know, because I know it's a lot to process. And, if we just need to take a breather from reading, I'm totally willing to do that. But yeah, it's a lot to process, and I'm a processor. So as you saw with the question you had asked about being broken by God, right? Over the day yesterday, that kind of like kept going through my mind, and I kept thinking about it. But we are supposed to meditate on the things of God, right? So like we shouldn't leave reading scripture and we're done for the day. We shouldn't, if we're meeting together like this and we read stuff, we shouldn't just be done for the day. We should allow an openness to where it keeps coming and going within our minds, or God can show us examples throughout the day to help us connect to what we're talking about, right? So yes, we should always process, but I'm definitely one of those people where I don't always have an answer right off the bat when you ask something, but then I'll come back around to it once I've had things come to mind. All right, so the effects of sin. Genesis 3. While Genesis 2 ends on an incredibly beautiful note of relational intimacy, the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed, right? You're naked, meaning you're willing to bear all to the people that you're with, not just husbands. Like for me, I'm not married, right? But I had to bear all to God, right? Even though he knows everything, we still have to, learn to trust him so we can be more vulnerable. So being naked is being vulnerable, letting people or letting God into our hearts. And back in the day, I used to be able to tell my story, but like I said, I was disconnected from it. So I really was telling like a story I read type situation. So I could do that with my partners. I could tell pieces of my story, but I was still guarded. So being vulnerable, being naked is being unguarded, right? You're opened up to that possible, like, they could maybe wound you, but that's only like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, we want to be vulnerable and open, right? But we want to make sure it's with the right people, I guess. Like, you don't want to be naked with everybody, I guess. Or at least maybe, sorry, I'm thinking something through, because I am vulnerable, obviously, on social media, so with everybody, right? And I could possibly have a wound come my way, or an arrow, right, come my way because of it. But I guess because I'm in a position of being so healed, it wouldn't bother me like it would have when I was still in my wounding. So there's a difference between being wounded and naked or being healed and naked. But either way, it still comes down to being vulnerable with one another, like truly unguarded, letting one another in. So this intimacy is immediately shattered by sin in Genesis 3. As soon as God and Eve eat the forbidden, as soon as Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit, all three aspects of the image of God are disrupted and distorted. Instead of mirroring and enjoying relational intimacy, immediately after eating the fruit, they try to hide from each other and from God. Soul satisfying intimacy is perverted into shameful hiding. Instead of visibly manifesting the character of God, they manifest ungodliness and unholiness. Instead of functioning as God's representatives and caring for creation, their sin caused creation to be harmed and cursed. At every level, sin corrupted the image of God, though it did not eliminate it. At this juncture, we should note the relevance of the curse recorded in Genesis 3:16 to the issue of abuse. Instead of joyfully living out the image of God through physical reproduction, the woman would now experience pain in childbirth. Instead of acting as a spiritual equal who complements the man, the woman would have an unhealthy, slavish dependence on the man. So I always saw the curse of how you will desire your husband. I had done some research on that before, and what I saw in that was that it's you will desire your husband's position, because like husbands are supposed to be the leaders, right, within your family, your marriage, your household, and you will desire his position, basically of power within the home, within your faith. And that makes a lot of sense to me in the aspect of like the feminist movement, right? Women trying to be the ones in control and in charge. And then like the Jezebel spirit being in control and in charge. But this is a different aspect. I think what he's saying is that it's a dependence on the man. I have to mull that one over more. Instead of the man treating the woman as a divine gift who could complement him as an intimate equal, the fallen man would seek to harshly rule over the woman as an inferior. So all corrupted due to sin. Scripture and human history repeatedly bear out the accuracy of this horrible prediction. Throughout history, men have repeatedly abused their power, and women have repeatedly been inappropriately and dangerously dependent on men. The Bible describes numerous instances, and he lists a lot of scriptures, where those with power, typically males, use this power to exploit and abuse those with less power, typically females and children. Definitely see that in domestic violence. Like I said yesterday, males are also abused, and there's domestic violence against males, but it still is generally, women and children for the most part. In a clarification of who is great in the kingdom, Jesus reminds his disciples that the Gentile political rulers, who were virtually all male, used their authority to dominate harshly those under their care. Whereas in the kingdom of God, greatness is expressed with humble servitude. In short, in a fallen world, our godlike privilege of creating and nurturing life is perverted through the abuse of power. Because men typically have greater physical and social power, they are often the perpetrators of abuse. For instance, research shows that men are responsible for 80 to 90% of child SA. The United States Department of Justice reports that in 1998, women experienced physical violence by an intimate partner, in most instances a man, at a rate 5 times higher than the violence men experience from their predominantly female partners. At the same time, when women are in positions of power, especially over their children, they, as fallen sinners, will also abuse that power. The most recent study shows that 65% of all maltreated, abused children are maltreated by the female. And when children are maltreated by a birth parent, 75% of the time they are maltreated by their mother. It's crazy, right? So you have the husband, right, mistreating the wife, and then you have the wife mistreating the child. Like, it's just this domino effect of power and abuse. The National Incidence Study also found that children are twice as likely to be neglected by a female as a male. The dynamic of the abuse of power helps us understand why over 3/4 of abused or neglected children are abused by their own birth parents. For birth parents typically have the greatest power over a child, of course. So how are you guys feeling about this right now? It's been a little while. I want to say there's still quite a bit in this chapter. I don't want to, overwhelm. I also want to give us time to like think about things. But next he'll start going into like I know it's going to be backwards, but there's like a chart, and he's going to go over how now the abuse distorts the image of God and what we were created to be like. I think maybe this is what I'll do. Like, yeah, good. I agree. So like for tomorrow, it's going to talk about a perversion of one flesh, right? And then, yes, it was. And then the next one will be like physical abuse. So maybe, we'll see every day how we feel about things, but maybe I'll just plan on like, let's focus on the perversion of one flesh. We might be done reading it in 5-10 minutes, but then maybe like I'll have some other stuff, ahead of time, like scriptures we could read about it or whatever. Kind of just like, mix this up and not just have it be me reading a book to everybody, And then the next day we can go into the next distortion. No, we'll play it by ear like that, but yeah. If you guys ever want to come on here and talk, we can talk verbally versus you just writing comments. Just throwing it out there. You can be a guest. I know. It's scary. I don't know what they're doing outside. Yeah, I know, right? You don't have to have your camera on either. You can just take the leap of faith. You can go out of your comfort zone. You do not have to put the camera on. But yes, I totally understand. I yeah, I don't even, okay, so what happens is they'll have, like your name will come up in the comment section and it says invite next to it, right? So I thought that meant like invite you to come to the live because you weren't in here yet. I didn't realize it meant invite you to actually talk. So that's why the screen looks like this now, and I don't know how to make it go away. I'm still learning. I don't know everything about this dang technology, I tell you. I know enough to get me through life, I guess. Yeah. Oh, man. I have to say I'm having more interaction on YouTube with these videos than I am on TikTok. I think if you're a YouTube person, right, you're obviously more of you have more of an attention span to like actually listen, right? Because you're watching most things on YouTube. They're, some minutes, some hours long, right? Well, I don't mean interaction as in like people are commenting. There's more views on it. And I want to say I got like probably like 9-10 new followers on YouTube just with starting this. So definitely there's a different, depending on the app that you're on, but it makes me think like, that's why, you know, the world is such a mess, is because we have, you know, so many people just have such a short attention span, or they don't want to dig into their you know, their stuff. They don't want to actually research stuff. They don't, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a different mentality based on the app that you're on. I'm curious, I wonder, because you can go live on YouTube no matter, at least the last I knew, no matter how many followers you have. I wonder if I like also went live on YouTube, what that would look like. What's not good though, uh-oh, my puzzle piece came up. I gotta put my puzzle piece in. Okay, we're back. Um, yes, it does. Even for myself, like, I can get into things, I can study for hours, you know what I mean? And I still find myself, like, if I'm on TikTok for a long time and I'm just scrolling, if a video's like, you know, a couple minutes long, I may lose my attention span, and I'm like, I can't focus on that right now. So yeah, and you think about that, right? Because the enemy, right, he distorts everything. So we're supposed to have these intimate, personal relationships, physically, in the physical together, right? And so he created technology, right? Because we have these, like, I love talking to you guys and stuff, but it'd be so much nicer if we were in the same room, right? And so he's created this technology, and, you know, it comes to us slowly over time, right? Like, it started with, I remember the pager. I had a pager, right? It started with a pager, and that was a great way for my mom to be able to get a hold of me. And so it was acceptable. So I got the pager. Then we moved on to phones, you know, and it's like, well, this will be a great way for you to be able to track your children. But you know what I mean? It's all a setup. It's a setup to get us into where we are now, where there's short attention spans. People don't really want to dig into themselves and God and, you know, becoming like God, because we're just so distracted with things. But yeah, I definitely noticed that even with myself. I have to watch my, I guess, attention span. Like yesterday, I was watching a video and I kind of was like, I can't even focus on this. And I looked down and I was about 30 seconds into the video and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I gotta have an attention span longer than a minute. But yeah. So, well, I don't know about by you, but we're back to fall today. It was like 80 some degrees yesterday, and now today I think it's going to be in the 60s. It's my favorite weather. Favorite time of year. So, anything new? Anything you doing today? Yeah. I'd rather bundle up with a hoodie than wear shorts and a tank top. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I know, right? What's same as yesterday? Oh, same stuff? Like you're doing the same stuff? Yeah, I know. I mean, what is fall really? Like, what temperature is supposed to be fall? Because, yeah, it always feels like we get this nice 60, 70 degree weather for like a week, and then it's like winter. Yes, same thing. Yeah. I never did go to the store yesterday, so I still have to do that. What else? I have to get emissions testing on my car. Yeah. What? Let's see. What's our high today? 67 is the high for us today. A little cooler, but I like that. It's fine. So yeah, I gotta do emissions, go to the store. That's about it. Boring. So are you guys enjoying this book so far? Or are you just here to support me? Oh shoot, it is, isn't it? I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I have little kids. All right, good. So you are enjoying it. Good. Yeah, nice. Good. Yeah, like we had said, I don't have a little one, so I don't celebrate it, and I don't know what I'd do if she was still little, like how we would handle that. But I mean, if a kid comes to my door, I'll give them a piece of candy. But yeah, I know Caitlin, you were struggling with all that last year. What are you guys doing this year? Like, are the kids dressing up and whatnot? Like, you're gonna stay indoors and just do activities together? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I think if I was, say I had a little one and say they really wanted to trick or treat, I'd probably do like a trunk or treat or something. I just wouldn't have like evil, scary costumes as an option. I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult raising children in the world but not of the world, right? Yeah. Yeah. Even man, I want to say like 6 years ago or something, I was already on the like, I don't want to decorate Halloween decorations anymore. And Heaven wasn't there yet. So, and she was what, in her, you know, early 20s. So it's not like, I learned like I don't want to, even though we live together, like I'm not going to dictate to her how she has to live her life. I'll still be her mom and try to give guidance and set an example, but as far as like telling her what to do, I don't want to do that. So I remember one year for Halloween, I was at the whole like, I don't want to decorate. Yes, that's what I do now is fall decoration, but I didn't want to decorate Halloween, you know. But she did. So I let her decorate the porch, and you know, she had like skulls on it and stuff, and I was like, it's okay. Like she needs time to, you know, God needs to work on her heart and her conviction, right? So I just, you know, let it be, and she did. She ended up coming out of it. Like she hasn't wanted to decorate like that since then, and now we just do fall decorating with pumpkins and leaves and stuff. But yeah, it's different when the kids become adults. You gotta, you know, let them figure out their way, not try to dictate. Pray for them. Yeah, that was a hard one. When they turn 18, you know, it's like you all of a sudden legally lose all of this control. I say control, like you can't even protect them anymore. Like they literally can do what they want. Or leave your house, right? They'll leave your house. That's what Heaven did. She left when she was 18, not because of like bad things were going on at home, but she had her own ideas and wanted to do her thing. And that was a hard thing letting her go. But God had told me he brought me to the prodigal child, right? Because she wasn't just leaving me at that time. She was, walking in a different direction. And he was like, let her go, let her go. And I was like, oh man, all right. And he ended up, I just kept praying, bring her back home, and brought her home. And she stayed then until she got married. And then she still stayed after she got married. Yeah, I know, it's so hard. Yeah. Well, especially now, with trick-or-treating, it's also scary with, like, people are, there's some people, I wouldn't want to take food from, like, you don't know what's happening with the food. You don't know, it's like there's all this stuff you have to worry about now. That's why I said if I had to do some trick-or-treating, it'd probably be at least a trunk or treat at a school or something. So at least it's a little more, honed in, and they know, these people and the bags of candy are coming from the store, and yeah. But yeah, I can't believe, like, back in the day, right, when I used to trick or treat, or even Heaven and my sister Paige, they would go all by themselves. We would just, go all by ourselves, door to door. No, does not feel safe. I remember as a Girl Scout or a Brownie or whatever, my mom let me go all by myself. I must have been like 6 years old or something. All by myself, I'm going to the apartments trying to sell M&Ms for a fundraiser. Just, there wasn't that fear back then. Not that stuff wasn't happening, but I do think that it became more rampant over the years. So, yeah, totally forgot it was that day. Well, that's cool. November 1st tomorrow. All right. Well, I think we should go take care of our responsibilities, or rest, whatever we need to do. Cool. So tomorrow we'll just plan on talking about this smaller section. I'll be able to read things ahead of time too, with it being a little smaller, and then we'll talk about it. So we're talking about one flesh. So if you want to think about that throughout the day, you want to look up some scriptures about it or whatever, you can start to look into that. But that's what he's going to dive into tomorrow. And so I'll see you in the morning. Have a good day. Enjoy the time with your kids tonight. Going out to dinner or doing your little, your prize buckets and your movies, and just enjoy being present with them, right? Yes. You too, guys. See you later.